crossroads.
Have you ever woken up after a crazy night only to realize you can't remember how you got there? So you spend the rest of the day piecing together little bits and pieces, hoping eventually everything starts making sense. That's kind of how I felt jumping into Hellclock. You wake up in an unfamiliar place, surrounded by people who seem to know more than you do. Before long, you're descending deeper and deeper underground, all while trying to piece together what happened, why you're here, and what this place actually is. Every run reveals another piece of the puzzle, making the journey feel like you're uncovering a mystery, one fragment at a time. To be honest, Hellclock wasn't really on my radar. I remember seeing it online around a year ago when it first released on PC. I thought it looked pretty interesting, but after that, I honestly forgot all about it. I never expected it to make its way over to PlayStation 5. So when I opened up the PlayStation Store and suddenly saw it there, it kinda caught me by surprise. I don't remember seeing any trailers or announcements saying it was coming to PS5. It just sort of appeared. On top of that, it happened to be on one of PlayStation's small launch sales. It wasn't a huge discount, but considering the game was already reasonably priced, I figured, why not? Right from the start, the thing that grabbed me the most was the art direction. The game has a really distinct style that immediately stood out to me. Pair that with fast, fluid combat, and I was hooked pretty quickly. The story also did a good job pulling me in. It's presented as a mystery, which is something I generally enjoy. That said, I did find it a little difficult to follow at times. I also decided to play the game with the original Brazilian Portuguese voice acting. To me, it just felt like the more authentic way to experience the game. The funny thing is, it never even crossed my mind that there might be an English dub, until I was watching the credits after I finished. I saw the English voice cast listed and just thought, oh, I guess they did have one. Now, I don't regret playing it that way. If anything, I think it helped immerse me in the world. But because I was reading subtitles throughout the entire game, while also trying to survive the combat, I definitely found myself losing track of parts of the story every now and then. The first thing that really stood out to me was the art direction. Hellclock has a style that immediately feels unique. It isn't trying to look like every other action RPG out there. Everything, from the environments to the enemies, has this dark, gritty atmosphere that perfectly matches the game's setting. It felt like the art wasn't just there to look good, it felt like it was part of the storytelling itself. Then there's the combat, and honestly, this is where the game really hooked me. It's fast, responsive, and incredibly satisfying. Every attack feels impactful, and once you start putting your build together, the combat really opens up. What I loved most was just how much freedom the game gives you to create your own build. Between your weapons, rings, armor, relics, and the skill trees, there's a ton of room to experiment. One thing I always like doing in games like this is looking ahead through the skill tree. I want to see what kind of crazy builds I might be able to make later on. So I'm scrolling through the skills, just seeing what's available, and then I saw it. I could summon ghostly creatures to fight alongside me. My eyes immediately lit up. I was like, Okiro. Lately, I've been finding myself drawn more and more towards summoner and necromancer style builds in games. Normally, I'm the guy playing a rogue or a mage, so this was a nice change of pace. And that's what I really appreciated. It never felt like there was just one correct way to play. If you're someone who enjoys experimenting with different builds, I think you're going to have a lot of fun here. And once everything finally comes together, man, it feels good. When your build starts clicking and you're tearing through entire rooms of enemies in seconds, it's incredibly satisfying. It's one of those games where you can actually feel your character getting stronger. The soundtrack also deserves some credit. It's not the kind of music I found myself humming afterward, but it always fit the atmosphere. It did exactly what it needed to do, by pulling me even further into the world. Finally, I really enjoyed the endgame. Once you unlock the Endless Dungeon, the game gives you a reason to keep playing beyond the main story. Before each section, you're asked to choose different modifiers that can either help your run or make it more challenging. Having to balance buffs against debuffs kept every run feeling just a little different, and I found myself spending quite a bit of time there just seeing how far I could push my build. As I mentioned earlier, I had a hard time following the story at times. Now don't get me wrong, I actually found the premise really interesting. I love stories that take real historical events and build a fictional narrative around them. Metal Gear Solid has always been one of my favorite examples of that. And Hellclock does something similar with Brazil's War of Canudos. My issue wasn't that the story wasn't interesting. It absolutely was. It was just difficult to keep up with everything while I was in the middle of combat, trying to dodge attacks and read subtitles at the same time. Another small issue I had was with some of the environments. Since the maps are randomly generated, there were quite a few moments where I'd run toward what looked like an open path, only to smack into an invisible wall, because it wasn't actually part of the playable area. It's not something that ruined the game, but it happened often enough that it became a little distracting. My biggest complaint, though, was the Ascension mode. Now, I understand what the developers were going for. It's meant to be a fresh challenge, where you start over from scratch and see how efficiently you can build your character again. And there's definitely an audience for that. My issue was more about when it was introduced. I had literally just finished the campaign, spent hours building my character into something I really enjoyed, and then the game basically asked me to reset everything and start over. Maybe if I had taken a few months away from the game and came back later, I would have appreciated that fresh start a lot more. But immediately after finishing the story, it just wasn't what I personally wanted to do. Overall, I had a really good time with Hellclock. The combat is fast and satisfying. I loved experimenting with different builds, and the art direction gave the game a unique identity that really stood out. While I appreciated the story and what it was trying to do, it never completely pulled me in. Between that, a few environmental hiccups, and occasionally struggling to follow the dialogue during combat, there were just enough bumps to keep it from reaching that next level for me. I picked the game up for $19.99, and honestly, I think that's a fair price. If you can grab it around that price, I think there's a lot to enjoy here, especially if you're a fan of action RPGs with deep build customization. So, is Hellclock worth your time? I'd say it's a good time, but I'd wait for a sale. And that's my take on Hellclock. Now I want to hear yours. Did you think it was worth your time, or would you have rated it differently? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, consider subscribing. We've got plenty more games, anime, and everything else that's worth your time coming your way. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.